ultimate goal when it comes to stress is get your nervous system, get your body to a place that's regulated. How you do that is up to you.
Charlotte Stebbing-Mills, who can help you understand your stress and how to work with it.
High achievers, high performers, people who are trying to be the top of their game, sometimes there's something a lot deeper driving it, and it's those typically are the ones that end up burning out.
I wasn't running towards something, I was running away from something. I only just fairly recently realised that I've got this fear of failure. I was always running away from it.
And when I say slow down, I don't mean stop achieving. I just mean taking those micro moments and just pausing, like you did this morning. Oh, let me just stay in bed that little bit longer. So our goal shouldn't be to avoid stress. It should be to regulate it. So we've got certainty, uncertainty or variety. We've got significance, contribution, growth and love and connection. If those needs are not met, it doesn't have to be all 6 of them at one time, but if at least 2 of them are not being met, our nervous system goes out of sync. You build that discipline. Yeah. But behind the discipline are your key drivers. So I think for somebody to understand and unlock what their ideal lifestyle would be is to look at what.
Welcome to the show where we talk to successful people about the bits you don't see. Today we're talking to Charlotte Stebbing-Mills, who can help you understand your stress and how to work with it. Charlotte, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Callum?
Yeah, I am good. Thank you. A little bit rushed towards the end there with you arriving before I was quite ready, but apart from that, all good. Looking forward to today. As I'd said to you just before, I like it when I've got somebody that I can ask questions to that I want to know the answers. You know, sometimes it's for the audience, but today I'm going to be asking you questions that I'm wanting help with myself. So looking forward to that. So yeah, what's your story?
Well, first of all, thanks for that, because I think it's really, really important, because there's so many things that, and we mentioned this off camera just now actually, that people are thinking that don't always say out loud. So it really helps to give voice and people to articulate their own experiences when people do that. Yeah. So I appreciate that for sure. So my story, born in the UK, moved over to the UAE about 12 years ago. I've
had a lot of OGs recently. I've had a lot of people that have been around for a while.
This is it. There's something about this place, isn't there? But it's, over here, so what I basically do in a nutshell is I work with both individuals and organisations to get to the root cause of their stress and prevent burnout ultimately. And like I said, I grew up in the UK and I started very much in kind of the typical health and fitness space, but specialised in cardiac rehab and prevention. So people with really stress-induced lifestyles that have met some of the worst consequences of it. And that was an interesting pivot for me into helping people after the fact, and then the idea of, am I on the wrong side of the fence here? I felt like I wanted to be in more of a prevention space. It was just kind of where I was called. So, and that's what brought me over here. I was working for a large commercial fitness chain over here, responsible for programming of the members of the team as well. And throughout that whole process, I managed to burn myself out completely.
Kind of ironic.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny though, because way back then, I've been in this space 20 years. Doesn't feel like it. It feels like a minute sometimes. But back then it was very much, if you're eating well and you're exercising, then you're healthy, right? And there was not much talk around mental health, emotional well-being, even when you look at cardiac specialisms. And it's crazy to me because they're so connected. Yeah. And that was the missing links in my journey. It was I had all that stuff down, but then everything just got too much, and I got to a complete breaking point. I got to the point where I just wanted to end it all. I was done. I was down and out. Didn't want to be here anymore, and that had obviously a significant impact on the way I see life. And I needed to go on this recovery, really, of understanding, well, how did this happen? I'm the one in this space. I should know it all essentially. And none of us are invincible, and we're all human underneath. But a bit like we said earlier, I think it's really important to be able to articulate what we experience, because I was in this space and I didn't know. Yeah. That was a long time ago now. So that was why we ended up founding our company, The Wellness Theory, because it was we wanted to equip people with the tools that we wish we'd had. When I say we, my husband is my co-founder as well, and he's been on his own journey with around chronic pain and how that shows up in the body from stress, and the different types of consequences that can bring as well is quite significant. So we look at stress from multiple different angles, and we try to look at what's the root cause, not just how do we take deep breaths. And I think that's a real significant difference in what we do when we compare to perhaps some of the other things in the wellness industry out there.
Makes sense. So that's a big word that's bandied about a lot, but I don't know if anyone's ever asked what actually is it. So what is stress? Everyone always says, I'm stressed. What is it?
For most people, it's usually a cover word because they don't understand actually what they're feeling underneath. But stress in itself is just a situation that demands us. Right, it's putting demand on our human capacity. So it's not a bad thing at all, stress itself, until it becomes chronic. And if we are not learning how to manage our acute stresses, our daily stresses, the things that demand more of us, whether that be physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually even, we can start to fall into these traps of staying in it and getting stuck in it. And then over time, that's what leads to burnout, which is that complete depletion.
So you said something interesting there, it's a cover. What do you mean it's a cover?
Life is fast. I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah, I'm the fastest ever. Like I've got something wrong with me.
I feel like in Dubai is where everything's going fast.
Yeah, 100%.
It's the reason I live in Abu Dhabi. Yeah. But the thing there is, we're moving so fast that often we don't have time to just pause and check with ourselves, be like, how am I feeling? You know, it's become a bit common, maybe even a bit of a trend, even to ask somebody, how are you? But how are you really? Is kind of a bit of a thing at the moment, which is great because it's making people to pause and check in with themselves. Typically we don't, and when we ask how are you, it's normally busy, stressed. Even earlier when we come in here, you was like a bit rushed, and it's like cool. And reality is you were rushed, but there was also behind that, you had somewhere you needed to be at a certain time. You know, you've got other pressures with whatever you've been working on this morning and these kinds of things running through your mind, and you want to keep spinning all of these plates. Like there's probably a lot more going on there if we looked emotionally, but we use these like blanket phrases, right? We're busy, we're stressed, we're tired. And although I don't take away from that, maybe that is true, I would always think, okay, well, what else is happening there if it's chronic?
So ironically, I have got so much better at this stuff. Everything we've just spoken about, I'm so self-aware compared to where I was. You know, I'm not saying I'm some, genius, but I used to be completely unaware of so much stuff. And I've got so much more aware. And literally this morning, when I got out of bed, I was thinking to myself, and it wasn't like, when you wake up and you're tired and it's like, oh, I'm tired. I was like, you're pushing yourself too hard just now. And I've got to such a good balance, but I know you kind of avoided it because you maybe didn't know if I was saying it out loud or not, but I've started in real estate as of, we did our induction today, and I start properly on Monday. Today's Thursday for anyone at home, we're recording. And I thought to myself, right, let's get so far ahead in the podcast. So I had my induction this morning. I was at the gym at 5:30, went straight into the office, had my induction, literally got here, changed, recording with you. I've got somebody coming after as well, so I'm literally like hour and a half with you, probably another hour and a half with somebody else. And I was thinking, this is probably too much because I'm doing it again tomorrow. I've got another 2 episodes tomorrow because I want to get 10, 12 episodes ahead before I start. And my point with that is I used to be so unaware, whereas now, granted, here I am, I'm in it, so I've still done the fucking problem, but I'm aware at least, and so I'm making different choices. I get out of bed at 4 a.m, which I know is a bit weird. People at home probably already know that. But when my alarm went off at 4, I was like, now let's stay in bed as long as we can until I'm still going to go to the gym, because if I don't go to the gym, then I feel shit the whole day. But if I just get up at 5, have a coffee, out the door, that's at least another hour in bed, and will hopefully feel a bit better throughout the day. So I've definitely got a bit better at managing it. What would you say to somebody that everything I've just said there is alien to, and they go, no, you just need to keep getting your head down and going harder?
I probably wouldn't try and change their mind as to what's going on unless they were explicitly asking that. But I would be questioning why. Why are we working at that pace? What's going on there? Are you really aligned? Are you running towards something? You're really passionate and you're grounded in that, and you know why you're, packing your days out in the way that you are? Or are you chasing something you don't quite know why? You'll start to recognise if somebody's operating from a more resourceful, grounded space, and they're inside their nervous system, and they're and when I say that, I mean they're not in fight or flight. They're not chasing because they need the money. They're not chasing because they want the status. They're because they don't feel like they're good enough, for example. Which is really common, particularly with high achievers, high performers, people who are trying to be the top of their game. Sometimes there's something a lot deeper driving it, and it's those typically are the ones that end up burning out quite significantly from that, rather than just the lifestyle. The lifestyle then is the symptom. And to point that out to somebody that's on that trajectory that doesn't really want to know, then
so that was me.
It's just asking the question.
That was me 3, 4, 5 years ago, maybe even a bit more recently than that. And if I'd listened to you there and me, I'd have been like, shut up, idiot. What are you talking about? No, I know what I'm doing. And I wasn't running towards something. I was running away from something. I only just fairly recently realised that I've got this fear of failure. And I was always running away from it. It's like, and I never realised, but I was like, I can't fail. I need to keep running. And, I could have stopped a long time ago. Yeah. But that was definitely my thing. And if, I'd heard what we'd been saying there at those times, I'd just be like, don't be stupid. Yeah. I've got stuff to do. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm definitely turning a corner with that.
What made you stop in those moments?
So I never had, like, any mad, like, burnout thing. I probably had a series of mini burnouts, which, I don't know, you might say different, but it was probably better than one big one. I'd be very much like, I'd have my head down for a couple of weeks, and then I'd get to a Friday, I'd go on a bender. This is back at home. And then, you'd struggle the Monday, Tuesday, and then you'd maybe have another 2-3 weeks, and then you'd do it again. And so, like, it was almost like, I'd liken it to almost like a pressure release valve. Yeah. Like, it wasn't good for me, but it did release the pressure. And so I kind of went round like that, and that weirdly worked. Yeah. I don't know how sustainable it would have been, though. So, yeah, that's probably how I managed it, if managing is the right word.
That's really interesting, because like there's something that can really resonate with a lot of people when we talk about this, and that is that swinging, right? It's to those extremes. Like, you're kind of on it, and then you're depleted. You're on
That's
it,
me 100% back then.
It's most people on a daily basis. And it's not always bad. It just depends how big is your capacity to be able to deal with those swings. Because we have like these extreme negatives and these extreme positives that happen. And we see this again, and I know like real estate is your background, and we see this a lot in people who are more in sales driven roles, right? It's like you have a really good month, then you're on a high, right? Or a good day or a good week, you're on a high, and then maybe the next week's not as good, and now we're on a complete low. And those swings on that pendulum is that's where the risk is. So knowing that you're going to swing, and that's okay, but being able to stay centered, don't not feel what you're feeling, but be able to observe, okay, I'm swinging a bit far this way or a bit far that way. It just helps you to be able to come back to then sustain it over time.
And I was utterly clueless of that at the time. I was completely unaware of that.
I think recovery is key in there, right? So even if somebody's listening to this and they're fast paced and they think, okay, well, this is a load of rubbish, like I'm just going to keep going, cool, but what kind of breathing space can you give yourself, right? You haven't got to get to the root cause of whatever's going on. You haven't got to admit whatever your fears are. Like, maybe we're not there yet, or we don't want to know. Maybe there aren't any, and you just need to slow down. And when I say slow down, I don't mean stop achieving. I just mean taking those micro moments and just pausing, like you did this morning. Let me just stay in bed that little bit longer. What needs to give today? What can I lean into more or less? Like, that's what keeps you centered. Yeah. It's not avoiding either or. Is how can we embrace all of it? Yeah.
Whereas me of old, I would have gone, no, you are getting out of bed at 4 o'clock. And one of two things would have happened. Either I would have this morning, and then tomorrow when I tried to do it again, it would all go to shit. And I'd wake up at 10 o'clock and be like, oh, what just happened? I cancelled the whole day. Yeah. Whereas now I've had that little kind of micro release. And then as soon as I've finished recording today, I'm not going to do anything else. Yeah. And then I'll get a good sleep again tonight, and then I'll be able to kind of get through. I was just so unaware that, I was just like, work harder until something breaks. Yeah. You mentioned a term, chronic stress. What is that?
Chronic stress is when we're under stress for a sustained amount of time, right? So stress, typically for most people, acute stress, it can be from minutes, maybe weeks. If we're in kind of a crisis period, maybe we lose somebody that we care about, or we've just lost a job or something like that, it can go on for a bit longer. But we typically come down from that, right? If you imagine you're almost in a car accident or something like that, suddenly we're on, that's like an acute stressor. Yeah. But as soon as it's over, you're like, oh, okay, I'm good, I'm safe again. Chronic stress is when we don't get out of that state, and we then start to operate from that space as our baseline. And that's when things can get a little bit or a lot intense when it comes to the consequence we see in our day-to-day life, right? So we start snapping at our partner, or we start making silly decisions at work, or we start going for the quick result rather than the long-term gain, and we start to fall into habits like constant scrolling on the phone, and we find like these different ways to escape and that kind of stuff. That typically shows up when we're in a state of chronic stress.
And is that like a different thing? Like, is that like a different cause? Because like my work stress, it comes and it goes and whatever, but is chronic stress, is that like an illness? Is that like, how does that come about?
Not necessarily an illness, and I'm not a clinical practitioner, just put that out there, but I believe we need to pay attention to what sticks. And what I mean by that is, if you cannot regulate yourself, chances are you need support in getting back to the point in which you can regulate yourself, right? So work stress, like you said, if it comes and it goes, good, right? You're probably regulating somewhere in there because it goes. But a lot of people, it doesn't. It compounds, right? We call it stress stacking. It's like one thing after the other, after the other, after the other. And that's when we start to just stay in these fight or flight states, right? And that's where it can become really tricky.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Do people have like an ability to deal with stress better than others? Like, is it like a thing?
Yeah, it's resilience. So I won't go too sciencey on you, but to give you an idea of what's happening inside the body, if you imagine we've all got, for sure we've all got a nervous system, right? Which essentially helps everything, all the other systems function if it's regulated. If you imagine you've got like a window, like literally a house window or car window inside your torso, inside your body. What's happening is when we get stressed, that window starts to shrink. And we call that window your window of tolerance. If your window is open, we can tolerate more. If that window closes, because we've got chronic stress or something significant going on, then we're less able to tolerate stress. So the more we can play inside that window and keep that window open, the more resilient we will be. We'll be able to handle more stress. If we are under stress and cannot regulate ourselves and bring our nervous system back down to a grounded state, we fall out of the window basically. We go one way or another. We will go up into this hyper state where we're anxious, we're overthinking, maybe we can't sleep at night and then we're kind of like buzzing from the stress. Or maybe we go into a hypo state where we kind of fall downwards, which is where we feel quite numb, withdrawn, we don't want to get out of bed. And these are quite common symptoms that somebody might experience. And when we get stuck in those hyper or hypo states, again, that's when it becomes a problem. So in terms of our capacity, that's what we want to do with stress. We want to understand the difference between acute stress and chronic stress, like we have, essentially the healthy stuff that pushes us to grow, or the unhealthy stuff that causes us to start to shut down over time. We want to learn how to live in that window as much as we can. It's completely natural to hop in and out of it. That's okay, but can we come back to it? And the people that can handle more stress are the ones that built the capacity. So our goal shouldn't be to avoid stress. It should be to regulate it and stay within that window.
That makes sense. Right, I'm going to come back to this, but let's go all the way back to the start for you. So who's Charlotte? Tell me your story.
I am someone who, like I mentioned earlier, grew up in the UK, had quite a turbulent period when I was growing up in terms of like things happening at home and wanting to kind of escape a little bit. I was somebody that it was safer to be outside the house, basically, in my teenage years. Got up to all sorts of mischief, as young teenagers do. Kind of the party, if you like, was always at our place. And yeah, it was a time that was a little bit wild, less restraint, if you like, that perhaps could have been there, which was really good for me in a sense because it made me get out there, it made me get out of my comfort zone. And I remember one really turbulent day, I left the house and there was in the UK they have like the cancer research runs around the park and this kind of stuff. And I was over there and I was like, all these people, like, they were really emotional. I'm like, why are these people so emotional? I was like 13 at the time. I'm like, I didn't quite get what was going on, but it was really cool because they was also like, they were running this race. There was kind of a good atmosphere at the same time. There was people grieving and they had like pictures of people they'd lost on their backs. And it was just really like an eye-opening moment for me because I was like, these people have clearly suffered in some way, but they're channeling it into something really good. And something clicked within me then. I didn't know it until much later, obviously, that there's so much to how we help others helps ourselves and how we can regulate ourselves. So kind of that threw me into this space of health and well-being. And it was only much later when I experienced my own burnout that I started to then explore like the mental health part. And a big part of that was when I was over here in the early days, I was just like you've described. I was like on the go, I was flying to different countries, 5 different countries in a week. And it was like really, really intense, but I absolutely loved what I did. And that confuses the life out of people, right? It just makes you think, okay, well, if you love what you do, then surely you're good. But actually, it sometimes can be a distraction as well. You can get hooked on that rush. And that was where I was at until my capacity shrunk. So who am I? That's what I've experienced. But who am I really at the core is somebody that just cares, that wants to make sure other people don't suffer in the way that I have, in the way that I've seen others. And I truly think that we're all here to be a force for good, and we must start with ourselves first. Otherwise, what are we doing? Yeah,
kind of like the aeroplane, put your own mask on first, and then you can help others with their mask, I guess. So what got you into the field that you're in? Like, how did you end up there? Like, where did you start with it?
Yeah, so I started when I become a personal trainer, then specialised in the cardiac side. So it was very much around the kind of the physical well-being space. And like I said, I just enjoyed it. I was at a point and I was like, I actually thought about joining the military. And it was only parents at the time were like, if you still want to do it when you're like 18, then fine, because I was about 16 at the time. They said then they'll fully support it. So I thought,
that's quite a sensible
it
approach.
Because by the time I was 18, I didn't go around joining the military at all. I was just enjoying what I was doing. So that's what got me into it, and just the pure love of it is what got me sticking with it. I really did enjoy kind of the progression piece of kind of climbing up the ladder, as it were. It was a new challenge. It was something that really drove me, and there's always something new to learn in this field as well. But it was the burnout that really made me understand that we need more voices in this space, but we also need to be credible and qualified in what we do. And so that took me down the pathway of then studying all the things that I felt were missing as well, and then bringing all that together kind of holistically.
How do you think it got missed for so long? Because you're saying like this has just become a thing. How did nobody realise this sooner?
I don't know that it's that nobody realised it. I think it's just we get stuck in our ways. Don't we? I mean, we were talking about the UK before and kind of like how that shifted gears over the years. And
I will not slag off the UK on this podcast. Every single episode, I'm always like, fuck the UK. Let's not do it today.
But it's a mindset thing, isn't it? And that mindset feeds into our curriculums and what we learn at school. And then textbooks don't get updated for however long. And then we end up doing qualifications that just become outdated. And I think back when I first qualified, the internet, we had the internet, but it was like old school AOL dial-up, you could hear it like connecting, so there wasn't as much access, I think, to perhaps what we now know and what is available to us to actually learn. So I don't think it's that nobody knew. Yeah. I think it just wasn't well structured for other people to understand and learn. But I also think partly we model our behaviours and our experiences from our caregivers, right? So if we don't learn it from our caregivers and we don't learn it at school, where do we learn it? Before the internet, right? So I think it's always been a thing, stress and burnout, well-being, obviously it's always been there, but I think there's also a sense of vulnerability that's needed into sharing stories, because there's a lot of shame that comes with failure, right? And I don't mean failure as in like it being a bad thing, I mean it as in we perceive it as this scary thing. And all stress starts when we perceive threat. Right. So if we perceive there's something wrong, we get a reaction to it. So if we are not aware of how we're perceiving the world around us, and then we're absorbing everything from our caregivers, then it's we're going to be living life through this coloured lens. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so if in fact, I was going to say, if I am stressed, how do I fix it? But what would the ideal lifestyle be to try and minimise this stuff?
I give you the worst answer, which is it depends, because no one is one and the same. And I think this is part of the problem with the industry itself. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of amazing things happening in the wellness industry, but it's that there's no one size fits all. There is no one way. Because the ultimate goal when it comes to stress is get your nervous system, get your body to a place that's regulated. How you do that is up to you. For you, it might be going to the gym. For me, it might be meditation. For somebody else, it might be playing with their kids, right? So it's understanding what actually works for you. But one thing that I will share that I think is really interesting for people to perhaps observe where they are kind of on their journey is understanding that we experience both stress and high performance through a very similar lens. So often people think, well, how can I be feeling this way or feeling so stressed, but that person over there is absolutely fine? Like, what's happening there? Ultimately, you've all got very similar makeup and steps to go through. So we have what we call the stress performance pyramid, which is where, if you imagine the pyramid, at the top you've got your life, which is what a typical life coach would work with you on, and like work, relationships, hobbies, this kind of stuff, right? And then we have in the middle of that pyramid our health, right? That's where it's movement. Are we breathing well? Are we able to be aware about the quality of our thinking and the effect that's having on us? How do we eat? All these different things. And then underneath that is that root, which is what's driving all of those behaviours above. And the reason I bring that up is because I hear a lot of podcasts, and it's not wrong, but we cannot prescribe the same thing to everyone, that we just must take a breath, or we must meditate, or things like this, because most people can't actually uphold any habits or the habits that they typically desire to do, right? It takes a lot of discipline, takes a lot of consistency to get that. And one of the key things and patterns that we've seen over time is a lot of people believe they're not consistent when it comes to these things. This is why on the 1st of January everybody's still setting a goal to lose weight or bulk up or whatever it is.
Or do 52 episodes of our podcast.
Exactly, right? You build that discipline. But behind the discipline are your key drivers. So I think for somebody to understand and unlock what their ideal lifestyle would be is to look at what's driving your existing behaviours in the first place. Are they serving me? Are they not? And how can I bring my body back to normal and look at some of these key drivers, which is often, what do we believe? What do we actually value? What's our real purpose for doing what we're doing? You know, what have we learned from our caregivers? Are we living in a stress state? Are we not? So it's starting to address those things that are a little bit deeper.
Okay, so let's maybe do a little bit of a worked example with me then. Ask me some questions and then hopefully people at home can relate. So yeah, go ahead.
All right, what's the problem?
I mean, I'm a lot better now, but I still, you know what my biggest problem is when I get stressed. It's not the big things that set me off. It's when there's like a little thing at the end of it. It's like, fuck off. Like, how has that happened? Stuff stops working. So I'm actually really good at generally managing high stress situations. I've had loads of my time and I'm generally okay with it. But yeah, there's like stuff just sets me off at the end of it.
It sounds like there's some stress stacking potentially happening there. So when you say you're really good in high stress situations, what does that mean?
Worlds could be ending and I'll be fine. I'll be fixing it. Like, you know, I've, if you watched that episode with Callum that just went out recently, I had to get on a plane to fly home because a project that I was working on, the investment fell through. We actually sacked the investor because he basically just wasn't doing what he needed to in time, and we were about to lose the project. And so I needed to find £5 million in a week, or I was going to lose 750,000 of the already invested pounds, which was some of mine, but a lot of people's around me as well. And I was just like, okay, that's where we are. Let's go and deal with it. Like that to probably most people would be like, I would crumble into the ground and die. And for me, it was just like, that's it. So like I can handle the big stuff, but it's when that's going on and then my phone weirdly stops working and then I trip. And it's the trip that's like, I explode. Granted, I'm a lot better now, but let's run with it that I explode and that like I would throw my phone off the wall or something. Is that stacking?
It's definitely stacking. Sometimes that can be because we've literally held on to too much. Maybe you've been in that high stress situation and you're well trained to deal with high stress situations, but we're less trained or conditioned to deal with those smaller moments, right? That typically can be the case. Maybe also if there's any kind of addiction there to it, you love that pressure, you enjoy it.
I do.
And I don't mean like in a bad way necessarily, so long as you've got a bit of a handle on it. But if you love that, chances are you can almost look for those opportunities, which is where you thrive, and that's okay. But what you've alluded to there is that there could be some like unresolved emotion that is trying to get out anyway. Right, so if it's like if we're going bananas because we've dropped our phone or something, it's not about the phone. This is something about that. So what is it that we're really attached to our phone and we feel like we're going to lose everything because our phone's on it? What's the like? Is there something happening there? Or it could also be that we just haven't given ourselves a breather at some point to allow for that release, like you said about earlier. So it could be something as simple as we just needed to take 5 minutes earlier, or it could be what does your phone represent to you, or what is that last bit that tips you, what does that represent to you? And it's a capacity building perspective.
That makes sense. Now I have got a lot better at that, and this is a really interesting problem because you touched on it there, but I have always been driven by the stress of like, oh, I need to fix this, or there was always so many problems, I needed to fix them, and I became aware that I was the cause of a lot of them. Like I almost created them for like whatever reason. I work by far the best when I'm under high pressure and it's like, we need to fix this. As I say, when else could I have found £5 million in a week? Like if I just woke up and I went, right, I'm going to find £5 million in a week, I'd have no chance. But because it's like, you need to do it, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to do it then. So when I don't have stress motivate me or a stressful situation or whatever you want to call it, I struggle. Like I struggle to go, oh, well, I'm going to do that thing because, well, why? I'm not going to die if I don't.
Yeah.
What's that?
Often we find safety or stability or even joy in stressful scenarios, right? Which is okay. And it can be completely healthy to do that if you're aware of it and you allow yourself to kind of come back into some place of contentment. Otherwise, you'll consistently chase that high. And if we're chasing that high, we could well be missing out on what's right in front of us, right? So it's not necessarily a bad thing unless it's something you want to change. But we see this really often is people come, they go over emotion, things they've been through in the past and understand themselves. They've got the level of self-awareness that you've clearly got now. And they're like, now what? I'm a bit bored. Boredom is a huge contributing factor to burnout as well. So being aware of that and just being aware of where are you on that scale and what's bringing you fulfillment or not is really, really key. But there could be some form of chase or addiction there. Sometimes it can be dopamine as well, not just stress is the good hormones that we get hit with at the same time. But it's how and why are you doing it? Yeah. That's what I'd be curious to understand is what's driving you to go into those high stress states.
Yeah. Well, I mean, generally... Well, I say it was circumstance, but it was like, step before that, I probably caused the circumstance. I was at a Tony Robbins thing, and you'll probably know better than I do, but there's these 6 different things that people are always 2 of them or something. And one of them was certainty, one of them was uncertainty. And he said, like, oh, everyone, make some noise or put your hands up or whatever if you like certainty. And everyone was like, woo! And then when it came to uncertainty, I was like, right, everyone's obviously going to be like, woo. And it was like me and like 5 other people in this like 10,000 people in a room. And I was like, that was the first time that I realized I'm weird. Like, I was like, oh my God, I thought everyone felt this. And like, I thrive on the unknown, and I went through a spell of gambling a lot. I mean, now I do a lot of crypto stuff. At least I'm profitable at the crypto stuff. Never was at the gambling. But like I thrive on uncertainty, and obviously we're speaking about the career that I'm now going into, real estate. Like, how uncertain can it get? You've got something that you could work on and get 99% of the way, and it's all done and dusted, and one thing goes wrong and boom, it's all gone, and you've gone from making £50,000 that week to making nothing for the next 2 months. So God, I've maybe not resolved all my problems that I'm going into that, but yeah, I don't know, I crave the uncertainty, and I crave the risk, and I crave the all of those things.
It's not a bad thing.
Yeah,
if that's
okay,
your with awareness, it's not a bad thing at all. Because what we're talking about with those 6 needs is we're talking about fulfillment.
What are the other ones?
So we've got certainty, uncertainty or variety. We've got significance, contribution, growth, and love and connection.
That's it.
And basically, we do well when all of them are met to the amount that we need, right? So in my relationship, for example, my husband is very much Mr. Certainty. He likes to know when things are going to happen, at what time. He likes to know how much money is going to be in the bank. He's like very certain, right? I'm like you. We wait for some bit of variety all day long. We work well together because there's a bit of balance there. Which is typically why a lot of relationships either work or they don't work, is because there's a bit of an imbalance with the needs there. It's like if 2 people really love variety and nobody cares about certainty, well, we're probably doing life by the seat of our pants and not looking after things if we don't have an awareness of it. So it's interesting that you brought up the 6 needs when I asked you what's driving you, because if those needs are not met, all right, it doesn't have to be all 6 of them at one time, but if at least 2 of them are not being met, our nervous system goes out of sync. So everything I said about earlier, we get thrown out of our window, and now we're going to chase whatever it comes up, right, whether it be crypto, gambling, sales target, whatever, until we feel like relaxed again. It's just that your need for uncertainty is way higher than maybe the average person, which is okay.
That makes sense. And I guess this takes us back. I'm becoming aware of things even now that we're talking about it, that, when you came in, I was like, oh yeah, I'm doing real estate because I got a bit bored. I guess that's because all of my companies now are in a position, the NEC one, which is a big one, it's always been like, will it, won't it? Like, I've worked on that for 6 years, and at every point it's been like, there's this hurdle, there's this hurdle, there's this hurdle. It's now open. So there's no more hurdles. Like, there's work to do still. We've got to phase it. There's still more building, but like, it's not happening anymore. And I guess, I started the podcast potentially partly because of that. Also, as I said before, because I wanted to prove that I could do something for a whole year. But yeah, maybe the real estate thing, as I'm buzzing for it, like I can't wait, like, and I know I'm going to be great. But, you know, maybe there is a bit of a void that I'm trying to fill with that.
It's interesting that you use, is it a void? Because it could be actually expansion that you're really looking for, right? It's that growth mindset. So if you imagine, and people listening to this will probably be able to relate, it's like we have our comfort zone, right? We have the place where we feel really comfortable and we feel confident. Maybe that's where we get bored too, though. But then outside of that, if you imagine like kind of a target image, you've got then our growth zone, right? It's this space where actually we can start to stretch ourselves. You can go after a new industry and want to dominate it, right? Because that's where you feel that real sense of expansion and growth. And you'll thrive there. But then we have the danger zone surrounding that. And the danger zone is where people typically go to because they push themselves too far too soon if their preference is certainty, which is why they'll start something and stop. So it sounds like you've got really good at staying in that growth zone or knowing where you can grow and where you can push. So long as you know where to pull it back on certain days or on certain months, and you have these checkpoints with yourself and stay grounded in why you're doing it in the first place, then you'll be absolutely fine.
That makes sense. And I guess that is why I'm wanting to do the real estate thing, because it's a challenge, right? And I want the challenge. I want the, you know, everything I've always done. I'm like the kind of main guy in my industry back home in the UK. And I can't really, like, the industry is the size it is and my company is the size it is, and nothing can really get much bigger because it's like a finite amount of size, and there's a finite amount of people that want to set up glamping sites and blah, blah, blah. And the UK is fucked, but that's to one side. Whereas with the real estate, it's like there is endless availability of possibility, and I love that. Like, I can't wait to get into it and be like, as I said to Callum, you'll have heard me say it on the episode that was released last week, was I can't wait to walk into the office and look around and go, there's so many people in here that are better than me, because I've not had that for a while, and that, I guess, is where you grow. Yeah, 100%. Your environment is a huge dictator on how you feel, on how you perform, everything. So getting in the right circles, you probably know that from a business perspective. Learn from the best and be around the best. You'll get better. And again, there's nothing wrong with that as long as you know why you're there and why you're doing it. So what would I do if I was somebody at home that's listening that's going, my environment sucks? Like, what do I do about that? First of all, reflect on, is it possible to change your environment right now? And I mean logistically. Like, do you have the funds to be able to change it? Is it a case of just making some different choices in saying yes to hang out with some people and no to hang out with others? Is there an easy way to change my environment? If the answer is yes, go for it. But explore internally first. Why is this environment not so good for you? Why do you feel like you need a different environment? Because often, and we see this a lot with expats, is they try to change their environment so they feel different, right? And sometimes it can work because there's a new opportunity and they grow and they thrive in that new opportunity. Other times is they come and they realise that actually the problems are still there because they are still there, right? I was a classic example of that. I came over to the UAE, got offered a great job opportunity at the time. I'd had a bug for travelling before that. I enjoyed travelling around, but I didn't realise until many years later that I also thrived on change and variety, and like that was one of the things that was driving me. And it was like the same problems were still there. Like I still had self-doubt. I still wasn't as confident as I could have been. I still wasn't maybe fully self-aware at that point, you know, and therefore I would move somewhere else and the same problems still show up. And so many people do this. And this is another reason why people change relationships. So you're saying I'm the problem. It's not everyone else. It's me that's the problem. Well, you've already acknowledged that you created a lot of your problems, right? So you've already kind of walked that path a little bit. But often it's a case of, let me just check myself first. Am I truly fulfilled? What do I need? Why do I do what I do? What is it I'm really aiming for? Answer those kinds of questions first before you change your environment. Because sometimes the environment is actually not the problem. It's our perception of the environment that's the problem. Does that make sense? Yeah, so it does to me, but what does that mean to somebody else that it might not make sense to? Yeah, so if you're at home and you're sitting there and you're thinking, something's up, I'm not feeling quite right, you're not sure if you're stressed, maybe burnt out, there's something a bit off, then ask yourself, what is it? What is it that just doesn't feel quite right? How do I feel about that? What emotions are coming up? Why might I be feeling that way? If nothing else existed, what is it I truly, really need right now? And you can even start with those 6 needs, right? Is it one of those needs that you're in need of that's not being met? And that will start to point you to the next answer,
right? And sometimes we will find that actually, no, I am craving new people to learn from because I don't have that in my environment.
Yeah.
Perfect. Find yourself an environment where they exist. It might be the other side of the world. It might be down the road. Like, start small and then gradually kind of look from there.
Makes sense. Right, a little bit more about you then. So tell me about some of the achievements you've had along the way. It could be yourself, it could be, you know, wins you've had with other people. Tell me a bit more about your story.
Yeah, a bit like you in that sense of like you enjoy the intense states. I'm a bit like that in a sense. So done triathlons, Kilimanjaro, all those kinds of things. I love a random challenge. When I was in Thailand, I did 160 kilometres around 3 different Thai islands kayaking.
Kayaking, I didn't know what was coming there. Kayaking, that's
yep,
hard.
It was tough, yeah. And that only happened literally because we were staying in this lovely spot in Koh Samui. We were looking out the window.
I was going to say, was it Samui, Koh Phangan, Koh Tao?
Exactly, yeah, exactly. We lived on Samui for a while. So we was up and we was like kind of looking at this view and I was like, it'd be really cool to kayak around that one. And I thought, I could do that. I'm not sure if I could do 3. And my husband's like, what? Why would you do that? He's like 6'5", and the idea of him sitting in a kayak for more than an hour is not fun. And it was just something I was like, I'm going to go for it. And I think a big part of kind of like my journey is making decisions like that. How can I stretch myself? How can I stay in that growth zone for as much as the time that I possibly can? So these kinds of challenges kind of stick with me. And a big part of that, I think, is because we grow into almost like a different version of ourselves when we do that. Like you say, in like one podcast a week, for a year, you become somebody that sticks to your word, that shows up, that can speak better, that can present yourself well, share your ideas, like and all of that. For me, when I do these little challenges, there's something clicks. So there's that side of kind of what I do.
Tell me more about that challenge. So like that sounds mad. Like I've been around those islands. I've gone on boats between them. It's like it's open water when you're going between them. Oh, yeah. So talk me through kayaking around them.
So I thought it was a great idea at the time.
I'm sure you did.
Because it was a nice, calm, clear day when I made this decision. And I was like, okay, cool, right, first step, I need a kayak. What kayak do I get? I have no idea about kayaks other than the random ones you rent. You know? So immediately I'd start to understand and learn things that I never thought I would learn, which was quite interesting. Different tides, the way the tide works, and like how to read maps when you're out in the water is very different to elsewhere. All these kinds of things. And I went out on my first day and I kayaked like solid for like 20 minutes to try and get to this like peak point on the coastline. My shoulders were burning. I was like, why have I decided this is 20 minutes? I'm going to do 160 kilometres and I've barely done like 2 kilometres. So I'm like, what is going on here? And then just gradually you just get better with it. And a big part of it as well that I really enjoyed was the not having technology. Like I would take and have music sometimes, but often none at all. And I think that was really refreshing because we'd just come out of COVID, which was very screen dominant. Like everything worked through the screens, everything. And so it was really nice from a self-connection point of view and to just reconnect with nature and like some of the things that you don't really think about. Yeah. Like for example, one of the scenarios, like you expect that if you're going with the tide, it'll be easier on you, right? But actually, no, when you go against the tide, when you go against the grain, actually you get way further. Like just these little lessons that would pop up, which is quite cool. On Koh Phangan, you spent a bit of time in Thailand?
I've gone like 3 or 4 times, actually, maybe more than that. I've done like those islands, I think, twice, not like ages, like 3-4 days each, not like, I'm living here. Maybe a month in Thailand at the longest point, 2 or 3 times.
Well, on Koh Phangan, there's the beach where the full moon party is. And years ago, I went to the full moon party, like 2021 or something. And was just like enjoying the full moon party. This time, I didn't realise the full moon party was even on. Like that's almost like how detached from that world I am now. And I'm now kayaking like around this island, and it was.
This is when you're doing the challenge.
This is when I was doing the challenge. The whole weather changed like that. It was completely unexpected. It wasn't forecast or anything. All of a sudden, the coastline vanished. Couldn't see anything, and I'm out there completely on my own, other than these massive like ferries. And I'm lucky if they can even see me. So at this moment, I'm like testing my stress capacity for sure. And I'm like going around. And I get to this corner when I can finally see the shore again. I get to this corner, which in my mind, from looking on the map, should have taken me maybe another 20 minutes to get around. 2.5 hours, I'm still fighting the tide to get around the corner. And out of nowhere, I see these massive waves like crash against each other. They make this beautiful spiral. I don't know if you've ever seen that. Incredible.
Yeah, not beautiful when you're trying to kayak round though.
At that moment, I was like amazed by it. And I was like, I could have been in the middle of those.
Yeah, that's
like,
not good.
That's not safe. Yeah, exactly. So I'm like kayaking for my life and comes around the corner and it's that full moon party beach that I get to. I'm like struggling to get in. I finally got to the coastline. I wasn't supposed to stop at that point, but there was no way I could carry on safely until the weather shifted. And this like massive hangover on the island, so it's like nobody's around to help. And then this Thai guy that happened to be like asleep on the bench was like, "What are you doing?" So I told him, this poor guy, like he ended up bringing his uncle in. He put like the kayak on this big ute, and we went back to where like my base was, and that, so I could go out later. But it's just like those are the things, like those high stress scenarios that you really learn who you are in those
100%.
moments, and it makes you capable of so much more.
100%.
Part of naivety in there, for sure.
Yeah.
There's some things I might do differently if I was to do it again. But it's, it just pushes you in ways you can't even imagine.
Well, that's the same as me with that NEC project. If I'd known it was going to be, I want to get this number right, 10% as hard as it's been, I wouldn't have done it. Like, I'm talking like, it has been 10 times as hard as what I expected. And even at that, I probably wouldn't have done it with that level. 10 times more expensive. It's literally been 10 times everything. And at any point, if I could be non-naive and see more than one step ahead, I'd have been like, there's no way I can do this. But because every step of the way, I could only see the next step, it's like, okay, well, I don't have a choice. I've got to do that now. And I don't have and at every point, I guess I got in deeper that like, I couldn't turn back. Yeah. And so I didn't have a choice. And, thankfully here we are now and we've done it. But God, I've learned so much from that you could never replicate in any way other than being in it and dealing with it.
Yeah.
But enough about that. Let's go back to the kayaking because we've only got to Koh Phangan. So like, are you? It's not a constant. You're not just doing it like until you're done. Are you stopping? Are you sleeping?
I did stop. So I did. I stopped between islands, but was going straight to the next one. So I would stop one, sleep, go to the next one, and I didn't kayak through the night. There was some like dark stints as the sun went down, and if I hadn't met where I was going, or that I needed to start mega early to be able to get to my checkpoint when I needed to. But to be honest, like it wasn't. Other than that, like Koh Phangan Day, like it wasn't that extreme. There were some scenarios, like when I got to Koh Tao. So Koh Tao was the only one I was like, I'm not going to take my own kayak. I'll just trust where I'm staying. They will have one, and they'd sent me a picture of it, and everything felt perfect. It was only 25 kilometres, so I thought that would be fine.
Yeah, it's tiny, isn't it?
And I get there, and they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. There's no kayaks, and I'm like, okay. So they're like, we've got a paddleboard. I've never been on a paddleboard at that point. I was like, okay, let's see how it goes.
You don't really have a choice.
So fortunately I was lucky with the weather and ended up doing it on that. But other than that, there wasn't too many kind of like hiccups and that kind of stuff. But I think the beautiful thing about it that I really love the most is those moments that nobody else will ever probably get to see or experience. Those moments where you're out and you feel like you're capable of anything, and you got fish that glow in the dark around you, like you see in a film, like fish just jumping in little schools over the kayak, and it just starts raining and you got that like pitter patter as the sun's coming up. Like they're things that I didn't think of at all when I was planning it, but it's like you get rewarded so many ways, I think, when risk is high sometimes, and that was just some really nice reminders in there.
So that's something that I am terrible at. I've cracked a lot of things and I've got the self-awareness, but see the whole nature thing, I get it, I've read it in the books, everyone says it, and you've said it, and all my books I read say it. I've never got the nature thing.
What are you trying to get from it?
I don't know. It's just everyone in the book says that it's important, so that's all that's all I've really got is like it's important, but I don't know much beyond that.
The thing with nature is it gives us resonance, right? So we are nature, essentially, as ourselves. As human beings, we are part of nature. We're an extension of everything you see growing, right? Because we live, we die, we're part of it. And we've become very detached to nature in many ways because we live in our boxes. We are on our phones, we're operating through screens, so we can go long periods of time without even physically touching what essentially is our own heartbeat in a way, right? And when we become detached from that, we don't feel necessarily a need for it. So that's why naturally people will feel quite calm when they go for a walk in the woods, or if they go to the beach or anything like that. Is there anywhere that you go and you just think, oh, this is nice, or not so much?
Not really, no.
Yeah.
Like, I want there to be, but I just can't.
But maybe you're already connected to yourself and your own rhythms, right? Again, it might not actually be a bad thing.
Yeah.
It might.
I don't feel like I'm missing something other than like logically when I read it in the books, it's like everyone tells me that nature is so important, and I've just never got it. Yeah.
This might sound like a really weird question. How much do you feel? Like, are you quite an emotional guy? Like,
it's such a polarized question, or a polarized answer to a question, because it's like there's some things that I'm just like don't feel. But then there's other things that I feel like I feel a lot. Again, I've been working on this with my life coach, and we're getting more emotional and stuff like that, which I think is a good thing. But yeah, it's quite polarized. I probably put myself in situations where I feel a lot, like gambling a lot or crypto or whatever, so that, you know, maybe the kind of day-to-day stuff I don't feel as much as others. But then, like, I really feel like I don't feel stress anywhere near as much as anyone else. But then, you know, I'll trip and I'll get wound up. So maybe I do. Maybe I almost like push the stress out, or push the bad bits of it out to a later point. Because I know that I need to deal with what I need to deal with just now, and then I can get angry later. Yeah. So that was a very long-winded way to say I don't know.
No, it's a great answer, and it's some interesting observations that you've made there. Is like when you suggest maybe I kind of push it away so I can feel it later. You know, when we push something away, typically we're trying to dissociate from it. So we're essentially not trying to feel it now. Maybe later, that's okay. Yeah. Maybe if the circumstances are right, and it's the right setting, that kind of thing, whatever is going on in your own mind. But often if we aren't allowing ourselves to feel what comes up, and that doesn't mean reacting in a time and place that isn't appropriate, just means if we're not feeling our feelings and in touch with how we feel, sometimes it can be harder to tune in to other feelings outside of us. So maybe nature being one of those things. Maybe it's harder to connect with it because we're not in our kind of like feeling state, as it were, if that's not a common place for you to hang out. Or it could be that you're so connected that when you're in it you don't feel a difference. I
don't think it's that. I think that, you know, I need a lot. I need like the high adrenaline, the high intensity stuff to feel, and so when I'm in those situations, it's like I just don't feel it, because I think it's more nuanced and more like you know, gentle, that I need like the crack to feel it rather than the nature.
Well, this is it, right? And I personally believe that we almost go full circle on this sometimes. Like we go for those extremes in order to feel something, and we love that rush and we want it until that pendulum swings back the other way, and then we get the extreme crash of that when we lose all our money gambling. But then that happy medium in the middle is where we get to feel it all, and we get to feel and notice those subtle things, and it's those subtleties that typically lead to contentment and peace. And I think everybody's on their own life cycle, they're on their own journey with that. Some people never find that real sense of peace, and it doesn't mean that you don't feel joy in the work that you do and what you're doing. Absolutely you can, but that feeling of everything right now is just as it should be, and those moments of I wouldn't change anything, like they're magical moments, and some people spend longer in them compared to others, but it depends on your why and what your kind of dominant feelings are and that kind of stuff.
Makes sense. Right, enough about me, more about you. So the kayaking thing, that was a bit mad. What other things like that have happened, or like what other achievements have you had, what other successes have you had?
So I mean,
could be life or work, you know, it doesn't just need to be life.
I mean, success is a funny thing, particularly I think in this region as well. Is like it can mean so many things, but for me, like, I think the biggest achievement when it comes to like business and life is the ability to be able to give back and to contribute. I feel like to be in a place now where we can support people with the work that we do that will literally change their lives and the lives of whoever they touch, and not because of us. We facilitate obviously a journey for them, but it's them that does the work, and that stays with them forever, long after we're kind of done. And that for me is the biggest achievement. And to have built our business in a way now that we can give back through all sorts of different kind of foundations and stuff like that, whether it be time commitments, financial commitments, that kind of stuff. Like I just love that, and that's been inspired by our clients, in all honesty. And I think that's one of the things I love the most, and I would say is probably the biggest achievement, is seeing our clients who have been in severe situations. For example, one guy springs to mind, PTSD, ex-army vet, been to see all sorts of different therapists and things like this, and I think anybody that is experiencing something significant needs to get all the support they need, but he'd almost tried everything, and he come across our page on Instagram and just resonated with us. We had a chat and we just worked through some of like the core things on that stress pyramid and some other bits, and his life has shifted completely, and now back in the UK he's set up his own army vet support centre, getting funding from the lottery to keep it afloat, and he's doing all these different fundraisers, and he's saved so many lives. And it's like, God, that could have gone the other way for him. And it's not us. I'm sure he would have found, whatever he needed to anchor into resource at that time, whether it be us or somebody else. But to know that we've played a part in that, it gives me goosebumps, and it's like that's what gets me up.
And it sounds like it's a big part. I think you're probably downplaying that a bit. That he's looked so many places and then he's found you and he's fixed it. So ultimately, I think you probably are quite a big part of that. Yeah,
I mean, we do a good job. I mean, I think like our track record shows that for sure, and I really appreciate that. And I think the biggest thing I appreciate, and it's weird because at the time I wouldn't have said it when I was completely burnt out and on my own kind of like road to recovery, is to be grateful that I'm here to be able to do this now, but also for the trust and courage that other people have to put their hand up and say, hey, I'm feeling this right now. Is this normal? That question is so common. And the minute somebody understands, oh, this is just the way I'm wired, and I just need to understand it and almost observe it and then figure out what role do I play in this, well, there's a sense of relief that comes. And to be in a position where I can understand it because I've been through it in my own way, and be able to reflect that back to others in a way that makes sense and help somebody understand that there is a clear journey, even though we're all very different. There are certain things that are the same, and the solution is actually a lot more predictable than we might think as well. So yeah, I think that's probably what springs to mind when you say like achievement and fulfillment.
That makes a lot of sense. Well done. Okay, so tell me about some of the challenges you faced along the way.
It's such an interesting question because I think challenges can be so, I don't know, like an interesting thing. Like when I'm a bit like you in the sense of I actually look back and I think, oh, those highs were actually like good in the end. It's hard to see them as a problem, but it's there have been many, and I think we see this a lot in the clients we work with as well, is that if you're quite optimistic and you have got a strong sense of belief in yourself, you almost think that you have to have it all figured out. And for me, I've recognised in my own journey and with others is that shame plays a big role in that. Is when we are trying to hit a certain goal in business, or whether we're trying to kayak around islands or whatever it is, if we don't succeed on that, there's this heavy like cloud that sits over it, and shame is like this emotion that people typically don't speak about. How would you define shame?
Oh God, there's a question. So I've probably got a terrible answer to this, but I almost like try and fight it off, because my mum my whole life has always gone, oh, what a shame whenever anything happens. And I've always been like, fuck that word. Like I guess you either go with or against your parents. I've got a good relationship with my parents. It's not bad, but like my mum would always panic about stuff and go, oh, what a shame that I've always gone another way. But I don't think that really answers the question.
No, it does for sure. And I appreciate you sharing that, because and the reason I say that is because, to make it clear for people listening as well, the heaviness that shame can bring compared to other emotions is very, very different. So the fact that your instinct was, I'm not going to entertain that idea, is actually,
it's an answer in itself.
Says a lot about you, right? That actually, do you know what, you've seen that maybe that's a heavy thing to carry. And basically, Brené Brown says it really well. It's like, guilt is when we've done something bad and we feel sorry for something. Shame is when we feel we are bad because we didn't achieve something. So when there is perhaps a fear of failure, and I have had that deep rooted within me too, like, then there's this fear, if I get it wrong, it's about me, it's because I wasn't good enough. And again, this is such a common pattern we see in high achievers that have got so much money. We work with millionaires and they're really not happy, and oftentimes, and this was true for me as well, is that we're carrying around something that doesn't belong to us, or we're carrying around this kind of like heavy piece of us that we're just essentially made up or experienced something to cause us to feel this way. So one of my biggest challenges has been to overcome shame. And that stemmed from a few different incidents in the past, probably stacked up, to be fair as well, from experiencing different kinds of witnessing domestic violence, treated a certain way as a child, experiencing sexual assault on multiple occasions, and there's a lot of shame and heaviness that comes with those things. So you think, why me? How did that happen? Like, oh, it's because of me that I have to be this way or that way. You know, there's a lot of shame, even weirdly enough, in the personal development space. If you can't stick to a habit, it's because there's something wrong with you. You've not read enough books, or you know, you don't have enough discipline. And it's like we're constantly throwing more and more shame onto the fire. And people's shame, it doesn't have to stem from something really traumatic, but often when we feel like we're not good enough, it's coming from that deep-seated emotion, and people don't talk about it. And one of the biggest antidotes to shame is compassion. And I think we live in a world now where there's not enough compassion. It's too easy to hate on somebody, whether it be online or you don't fit into like my norms, so I'm just going to disregard you or not even talk to you because you're a different nationality and you're serving me, right? When I think of like this region as well. And a lot of that has such a knock-on effect, and it comes from, I think, lack of compassion. So one of my biggest challenges has been, how do I give myself the level of compassion that I would give to somebody else?
I'm so bad at that. You fucking idiot, why have you not done that?
Yeah.
Like, what is wrong with you that you can't do these things?
Yeah.
I'm so bad at that.
Yeah, and most people are, right? And that's the block, right? Well, that's one of the blockers that's keeping us in that fear of failure, or keeping us on this rat race to prove that we can do X, Y, Z, because we're not giving ourselves that compassion to say, actually, do you know what? I do need to sleep in. I do need to take a moment and reflect. I do need to sit with myself and just be like, okay, how do I actually feel about this right now? Am I doing this because I learned this from when I was younger? And so I think there's a lot to be said for just being kind to ourselves. Yes, everybody else, but I think we can only really be kind to others when we know how to do it for ourselves in a really meaningful way.
Yeah,
I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, definitely. You said something that sounded really important there. Let me get this right. Shame is when you're carrying something from somebody else or something like that. That sounded important. What's that?
Shame is when we are projecting whatever the situation is back on ourselves, like something's our fault, right? So, and I use the comparison to guilt because it's usually a close second. Somebody will say they feel guilty about something when they've done something wrong. But if you do something wrong, let's say you cut me up on the road but you didn't mean to. Yeah. Okay, you can let that go real quick, right? But if you cut me up on the road, then you go home, I'm such a terrible person, I cut that person up. Yeah. Right? Imagine if you cut me up and something significant had happened, right, and I didn't make it home that day, that guilt could suddenly turn to shame. So I'm such a terrible person because I made that mistake, right? Or you could forgive yourself and move on because it was an honest mistake, right? Like, but often we have these little things that happen and we own it and it becomes part of who we are. Like something happens in the office. All right, let's say you're trying to close a deal as a real estate agent, right? And you don't do it. And everybody in the office shames you for it. And you feel like an absolute tool because everybody else can do it. And now you're in this state of shame, which is the lowest vibrational emotion that exists. It's the one that will stop you from getting out of bed in the morning. How are you going to feel the next day when you go into the office? Yeah. You're now going to be on the defence. Oh, I don't want people to see me fail. Right, and so it can play like a very insidious role in our lives if we're not aware of our own behaviours. Yeah,
that makes sense. What does the lowest vibrational emotion mean? That sounds interesting.
So every emotion holds a certain vibration, like everything else in the world does, right? So this table holds a vibration, this chair does, like our voices, different vibrations, right? We can relate to this stuff. And our emotions exactly the same. Our emotions are just energy, right? So all emotions are okay, they're welcome, they're safe to feel. Often, and I say that because often people push it down because they're ashamed to show them. Yeah. But they're completely human. We're supposed to feel the whole spectrum of emotion. But if you look at Dr. David Hawkins' work, there's something called the ladder of consciousness, which is essentially all of our different emotions. And we all want that high vibrational emotion, right? We want the joy, the peace, the excitement, right? We want to be on that end of the pendulum or at that top of the ladder. But when we swing because we're chasing those vibrations and we're operating from a place of shame, we'll never reach that sense of joy or peace because that shame is pulling us down because it's heavier. So if you think from an energy perspective,
so if shame and whatever the other end of the spectrum is have a fight, shame wins. in a very crude way.
It depends. Because, yeah, kind of. So if we look at energy as like the speed at which something vibrates, right? So shame, for example, is like it vibrates at what we'd say 40 hertz. So it goes like really slow. It's why we feel sluggish, why we feel tired, why we feel heavy in our bodies. But when we feel joy, we feel really light, right? And we're buzzing, right? Because our vibration is so much faster.
Yep.
Now, if we have like this real strong presence and we live in joy and we have this really high frequency around us, chances are if shame comes up, we know how to let go of it real fast.
Yeah.
Right? If we've cultivated that skill set. But if we are not and we don't know how to tap into those higher states, then we can easily get overwhelmed with shame and you would lose in kind of that fight. So ideally, what people typically try to do, and we see this, you mentioned Tony Robbins earlier, these motivational like weekends and stuff, is like you'll go in feeling however you're feeling, whatever your typical baseline is. Throughout that event, you'll probably have these extreme highs, maybe lows, depending on what you're working on in those kind of sessions. And you come out of it feeling lighter because you've just been in a room where it's designed to make you vibe really high and you're buzzing like a drug, right? But then when you go home, you go back to your rhythm, you might not be as low vibrational as you were before.
But you make your way back.
You can make your way back unless you learned how to stay in those states or you really let go of whatever it is you're holding on to. So a really simple way to think about this, imagine we've all got our own energy bubble around us, 10 feet around us, up, down, left, right. You know zorbing, those big plastic balls you go in? Imagine we've all got one of those. Yeah. We just can't always see it. Our job, essentially, is to fill that energy bubble up as much as we can with all of the things that keep us regulated and allow us to have access to those higher states, right? Staying in that window of tolerance that we mentioned earlier, knowing how to bring ourselves back if we get a bit of a power leak and we have a stressful day at work or something significant happens, our ball doesn't deflate. If we are not taking care of our own energy bubble, and by that I mean if we're not asking ourselves those reflective questions about why am I doing this? What do I value? Does my environment fill me up? Then our bubble is going to deflate. When our bubble is deflated, well, now you can affect me way more than if my bubble is full. That's why if you're in an office environment, for example, and somebody's had a really rubbish day or night, or they've had a really stressful morning with the kids and they come in a foul mood, it's going to rub off on you if you're vulnerable to it. Yeah. Or you can choose to be the other person who actually helps uplift the other person rather than falls flat to their vibe as well. And in, for example, real estate for you, the people that are buying from you, they are also experiencing their own energy bubble. Some of them, for a lot of people, moving house and buying a property is a very stressful scenario, right? It's one of the, I think, the top 3 stresses behind public speaking and finance. So if you're not aware of how you're showing up and you show up to a meeting with a potential buyer who's already stressed out of their mind and they just want you to really help them and kind of deal with all the admin-y stuff and all of that stuff, and you come in a low vibrational state, they're not going to trust you, they're not going to buy from you, and you're not going to know how to bring them along into your world of showing them the dream of living in this home, right? So how we show up in our own energy bubbles becomes contagious to other people around us.
Okay. Interesting.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense, but it's like, whoa, that's kind of scary in a way.
Why is it scary?
I don't know, it just like, it sounds very impactful to everyone around you.
That's how powerful we are.
Yeah.
Like we have literally a ripple effect. I mean, there's been multiple studies done that stress is contagious. It literally comes out of our pores. Oh. So if I came in today and I was like really stressed and anxious, you'd pick up on that vibe. Right. Right? If I come in and I'm absolutely buzzing, you can feel that too. Right, I like to think I'm probably a bit grounded today. Probably not as high as I can be, and not as low as I can be. Yeah. But there's a resonance, right? We're kind of on that same kind of grounded level. But if you were sitting there like really, really like down in the dumps, and I was like buzzing really high, something's going to happen in that session. Either I'm going to drop or you're going to rise. And that happens every single day, which is why when we come home to family, whether it be kids or a partner, how we feel and how we show up is what they absorb. Yeah. Right? So we start to learn that what we do, how we think, how we speak, how we feel, if we don't look after our own emotional well-being, our bubble deflates and we become very susceptible. So when you throw your phone, because it's something's at its tipping point, your energy bubble's probably depleted a little bit. Yeah, and it needs pumping up. Yeah, it needs pumping up. So go to the gym or not go for a walk outside for you. But
I've never got that one either.
But whatever your thing is.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what that thing is, anybody listening, try stuff. See what happens. What makes you feel good?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Tell me some more challenges.
Could
be yours or clients or, whatever.
From what perspective?
So, like, you've done some cool stuff. What are some of the kind of hard bits that have happened along the way with it?
I think the burnout piece is the absolute hardest. It's so.
Tell me about that.
So I was living in Abu Dhabi. At the time, I was living in a shared apartment, and I remember coming home from work, closing the door, and to my room at that point, and I was just like completely, almost absent-minded. I was very like dissociated from like how I was feeling. It just felt normal to come in and feel so low, and I just got really, really emotional. All of a sudden, there was a lot of different emotion coming up for me, which had clearly, in hindsight, been there for a long time. But I was like, I just don't want to be here anymore. This world isn't for me. I didn't know what was going on. I was very confused at that moment as well, because I was like, there were signs along the way that I didn't catch that had led me to that moment. And I was like, that I think it was the shame piece that kind of hit the most, was I can't tell anybody about this. I was living in a shared apartment. There were people in the rooms around me who were broken many years later to find out what I was going through. But it was something that back then wasn't something that's talked about, right? Either I didn't have the confidence to be that vulnerable, I didn't feel safe enough to feel that vulnerable with the people that I was around, whether that be in work or at home. And that I think that's where I kind of kept it behind closed doors and was like, on the outside world, everybody thinks everything's fine. On the inside, I was completely crumbling. And I got to the point where I just was like, okay, I don't want to be here anymore. I got, it was a really long scarf at the time, and I tied it up on one of the big wardrobes you have in these apartments, and I was done, like literally around my neck, done, didn't want to be here. Can still like feel the texture when I even think about it now. And for whatever reason in that moment, I didn't go through with it. I literally was just like,
why? Like what's happening in your head? Why did you stop?
Something literally just snapped, and I was like, oh shit, like what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah.
But then even more emotion come out, and I was just really confused, and I was just like, how has it come to this? Like, what's going on? I mean, I could sit here and tell you that it's God or it's this or that, and it's like, I genuinely don't know. But there was an energy. There was an energy that was just like, what's happening now? Snap out of it. And I didn't just snap out of it and everything's fine. I was like very emotional again, like I said, confused. It was a cocktail of emotion, relief, shame, fear, like what's going on kind of thing. And it was at that point I reached out to a therapist at the time, and she was just like, come by email, because I was too scared to do it. And it was like 2:00 in the morning. And she messaged me back to just like, come down today. And I went down, and that was it. I started to learn about what was going on in my own mind, and understand like just basic psychology. And this is the thing, right? It's like we don't always need to go to like psychiatry and things like this. Yes, absolutely, go through the checkpoints that you need to understand the severity of what you're going through, but sometimes it is as simple as self-awareness. And for me, I think it was just a massive lesson in, you're going to get your own attention one way or another. It's going to be because you lose all your money gambling, or it's going to be because you hit rock bottom. And for me, like I said, there were signs on the way that I hadn't spotted. Like, I was aware of, but hadn't really owned it. Like, I was eating more emotionally than I would have before.
Tell me about some of these, because some people at home will be seeing these signs but ignoring them. So what are the signs?
Eating emotionally. So if I was feeling a bit down or upset, or even feeling good, I would eat more. And typically that wasn't my thing. I would eat pretty healthy. I would exercise. I stopped training as much. I started to withdraw as well. I didn't like go out with friends or do much like that. I felt like all of my energy was going into this facade of everything's okay. And like I said, it's weird because I was enjoying what I was doing. So it was almost like there was a comfort in working. Yeah. Because I was technically safe, if you like, because I was good. But it was then when I was then on my own, I was like, well, what's going on here? Yeah. So it's like those polarities. So looking again for those extremes and recognise any signals there, trying to prove yourself a lot, getting easily triggered by the people around you. Sometimes that can be very much a projection of maybe things that have happened to you in the past from your perspective that you see playing out now that just trigger something in you. It's just looking at things that are different from the norm. Yeah. That's the key. That's the key, because everybody's patterns could be different, right? It could be somebody that's usually happy, clappy, smiley, go-to person is suddenly really depressed, or it could be actually no, their eating habits have changed, or they don't come to this meeting anymore, or they just don't come to the socials anymore. It can be very, very subtle.
Interesting. Have we missed anything? We spoke about a lot. Is there anything that you want to speak about that we've not spoken about yet?
I don't think so. I think maybe just the main thing to highlight in what you said is that power that we actually have over the people around us.
Yeah.
Because I think that's critical. You're at a point clearly where you've got this sense of agency. You know who you are. You know what you want. You've built a life yourself where you're not in that kind of scarcity mind. You've got a sense of safety with like roof over your head and financially stable, this kind of stuff. You're going into a wild industry because you choose to, not because you have to. You're not in survival mode, and there's a lot of weight to that, and you can be a real positive influence on other people that might be struggling. And the people that are struggling, they also have the power to shift their own emotional state if they are to have a real look honestly at themselves. That doesn't mean to judge yourself negatively. It just means to be really raw and say, this is what I'm really good at, this is what I'm not so good at, and this is what I'm struggling with. What are my options right now? Because how you feel will have an impact on the people around you, whether you like it or not. And I think we have a responsibility to then leave people better than we found them, especially the way the world is now. And I think for some people, maybe I'm picking on real estate here just because I know some clients that we've worked with, it's like it can be easy to be like, I need to sell this many places and hit this target, and actually you're creating a home for somebody. This is a place they're going to feel safe. This is the place they're going to have their memories. Like, tap into that side and show your clients what's possible and why this place really suits them as a person, that you understand that they've got these 6 needs and stress, and they've got this nervous system that's probably all over the place because they've had a busy day and they come to you. Like, understanding that that's where people are coming from, and you can shift literally the course of their life based on where they live. Because like we said, environment is so important as well, and you have the power to do that. I think it's really necessary.
Amazing. That's a great place to end. Before we go, where do people find you and your businesses and everything else?
So just Charlotte Stebbing-Mills across LinkedIn mostly, on Instagram. They're the 2 platforms we're most active. We've got the website, thewellnesstheory.com, and we've got podcasts as well. The Stress Relief in Your Pocket podcast would probably be ideal for your guys.
Good. Thank you very much. It's been great.
Thank you so much.